Hello, today on EisnerAmper's Entrepreneur Edge, we have Chris Gronkowski, owner and inventor of the Ice Shaker. Ice Shaker has been featured on Shark Tank and received offers from all five sharks. Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. We can't wait to hear your story.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Can you please start with telling us what inspired you to develop Ice Shaker and how is this different than the other bottles?
Yeah, for sure. So I was about 5 years out of the NFL at the time. I was working for my wife. It was actually a really good business that we still have now. But at the end of the day, it was her passion. We were actually creating and personalizing mostly wedding gifts and event gifts. And it was all good. But at the end of the day, my passion had always been sports and fitness. And I was going to the gym about twice a day. And it was super hot in Texas. I was there, and it was about 100 degrees out that day. And I had this plastic shaker bottle, and it was just sweating everywhere. I took a sip out of it. It was warm. It tasted terrible. And I went home that day and said, I need to find a way or find a better bottle, out there that I can actually use. That's not going to get warm within 20 minutes here in Texas. So I went home that day. I looked for an insulated bottle that I could mix and blend any types of powders, pre-workouts, post-workout shakes in, and there was just nothing out there at the time. So at that moment, I was like, all right, I'm going to make the best bottle that I can for myself, that I can use really for everything. It wasn't just for the gym. I wanted to bring it everywhere because at the end of the day, I'd end up with like 4 or 5 different cups in the sink and it would drive my wife crazy. So I wanted to find a way to just have one bottle that I could use all day, every day for everything.
I actually myself have an ice shaker here. I don't know if you see this one, but I do have the one with the straw. So I'm a huge fan of the insulated bottles with the straws. So, yep, cheers.
Cheers to that.
EisnerAmper has a ton of early stage and startup clients. And one of the questions we get asked a bunch of times is how do you raise your initial funding? And how do you find the money to get started once you have an idea? So you found a problem and you came up with a solution for it. And can you tell us a little bit about how you had your initial funding for it?
Yeah, so I was lucky, and it's definitely not normal, I guess, to be in the situation that I was in. My wife's first business, we actually funded it with my NFL money. So I had a decent amount stacked up. We were able to use that money to then invest into her business. But with that, we started small, and then we also let it build as well. So first, with her business, maybe a couple $1,000s to start it. Started investing everything back into it, and then once we saw that it was successful, that's when we started putting outside funding in. And the outside funding at that time was money that I made from the NFL. So that's how we got that started. And then what's cool about it is her business then funded Ice Shaker to get started as well. So we took profits from her business. We used that money to start up Ice Shaker. So I never had to go out and actually get outside funding. I did end up getting outside funding on ABC Shark Tank, more because I wanted a strategic partner, not necessarily because I needed the money at that point. So I've never personally really went through the steps, but I would tell people, first get started. Make sure it's something that actually has a chance, something that you actually like doing. And once you see that it can be successful, then go out and find a way to get funding. And at that point, it's going to be a little bit easier as well because you have a proof of concept.
That's great. So we saw on ABC Shark Tank that your brothers came on the show, and I guess I'm curious, how is it to do business with family, and what is an important takeaway for people when you do business with family? I mean, sometimes my family can't even decide where to eat for dinner, so I can't even imagine the challenges with doing business with family. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So there's 5 brothers altogether, and then my dad started his own business 32 years ago. He actually started a fitness equipment business because he was looking to put a whole weight room in the basement for us, for the 5 boys, and there was just no quality equipment out there at the time. So with that, some of us are in that business. My 2 older brothers work for my dad, 2 completely separate departments. I run Ice Shaker. Rob's still playing in the NFL, and my youngest brother actually works for another company. So what's great about it is that all of us work in the sports and fitness realm, but we don't work on top of each other. So there's enough space there where it's not a day-to-day grind on top of each other, and we're not each other's bosses or anything like that. But we are able to connect and really help each other out in all different kinds of ways. So we are on the phone almost every day talking about different ways that we can help each other out. So it's a really cool dynamic that we have going on.
That's awesome. What would you say your first strategic hires are? We obviously always suggest, partner up with a great accounting firm and a lawyer and all of that. But what do you think your first strategic hires were when you started Ice Shaker?
That's something I definitely waited way too long to do. So I highly suggest hiring as soon as you can, because once you can afford it, that's probably the time that you need to. It will really help you grow a lot faster as well. And for me, the accounting firm was massive. I actually have an accounting degree, so I tried to do it myself. It was just eating up so much time. It was a nightmare for me. So I did go and get a CPA firm to take that over for me. Uh, Customer service was one of the first things I hired. I was trying to do all the customer service myself. I did it for years. It eats up a ton of time, so that was big for me. But after that, what I did was I kind of hired different pillars, I guess, is what I saw it for my business. I wanted to make sure I had people that I really trusted at the top, and then let them kind of run that kind of segment for themselves. So we do kind of have a different pillar for marketing, our fulfillment team, and then also our sales team. So for me, that was three really strategic hires that have kind of been staples for us.
It's great. I know social media now plays a great role in everybody's business. So I'm sure you have someone dedicated to that as well these days.
Oh, we're starting to really push into that, and it keeps becoming more and more important because privacy laws keep changing. So the new iOS update has really crushed the ability to get data back and reach your audience that you're trying to target. So with that, building your own social media becomes a major asset for you instead. So we're putting a big focus on that for this fourth quarter this year.
That's great to hear. What do you consider when you're looking to scale your business? So I know you initially started out with just, the protein ice shaker, and then obviously you went and you realized, I'm sure, that you had this great product that can be used for other drinks and beverages and things as well. So how do you scale your business?
Yeah, for sure. We did a lot of it just by customer feedback. So we asked our customers what they wanted to see, what they like, what they want to see more of, and then we took that advice and we started following that path. That's how we originally started building out the product line. We realized that the product was for males and the end user was males, but most females were buying it for their husbands, kids, grandkids. So we then wanted to find a product that fit the female demographic. So we came in more with the tumblers. And then from there, now we're currently scaling by doing the same thing. We just released a bag this week. It's actually a lunchbox cooler bag. We asked our audience what they like. They like to bring their lunch with them. They bring usually the protein shakes with them to lunch as well. So it's kind of the perfect fit. Someone who's buying our bottle is usually living a healthy lifestyle, and they're usually bringing a lunch or packing some kind of food at some point during the week. So launched the bag this week. It's been awesome. I'm super pumped for it. I've been using one for like 2 months now, and I bring it everywhere. But that's how we scale. We try to find exactly what our customers want and need, and we follow their advice.
That's great advice. What do you think one of the most risky decisions were so far that you've had to take? So, entrepreneurs, just being an entrepreneur is a risk these days. And what would you consider to be your most risky decision?
I would say right at the beginning, that initial purchase is by far the most risky thing that I did. At that time, I think the first purchase was about $50,000 of inventory. Had no clue if the product was going to sell or not. But when you first start up, there's a lot of startup fees, there's tooling fees, there's minimums that you have to hit, and I just had to go for it at that point. So that was by far the most risky, I guess, $50,000 I could have spent.
Well, it turned out well. So, knowing what you know now, is there anything that you would have done differently when you were first starting out that you can give any advice to our early stage clients and entrepreneurs?
For sure, for sure. I hit on it a little bit earlier. I would say definitely hire as soon as you can. It slows you down, and as an entrepreneur, you're super competitive. It's your baby. You think you can do it better than everyone else, and you can. But at the end of the day, there's not enough time in the day to do all those different tasks. So I was probably working over 100 hours a week when I first started. The work hours didn't bother me, but at the end of the day, I could not do everything. And if I could, I couldn't do it to the level that someone else could if they were just solely focusing on it. So that held me back a lot. We kind of plateaued for a little bit. And then once I look back at it, and really what got me was the pandemic. I couldn't do everything anymore. I couldn't be there every single day. So I had to find a way to build an amazing team. And it got me thinking and it got me asking questions. And I started reaching out to local business owners that were super successful. I reached out to my dad as well. And I said, what was that one thing that changed everything for you? And he's like, it's all your team and it's all your plan as well. So budget, forecast, team, those were the same answers every single time I reached out to people. So the team was massive. And then I started looking at my history with the NFL and playing sports, and it just made so much sense at that time. It's like, wow, I was in these amazing organizations with these amazing teams. Let's take that same structure now and put it into business. I'm now the coach now. These are my assistant coaches. These are my players. It all is the same thing. You're just now transferring it into your business world instead of the sports world. So once we did that, everything changed really quickly. So best feedback is hire when you can. I definitely think at some point super early on, you have to do a bunch of different tasks. But once you can afford it, once you start growing and you can't handle all that work anymore, bring someone in that can help you out.
Wow, that's great advice and a great analogy comparing it to a team and the NFL. I love that. How do you define success?
For me at this point, I personally, I think success is when my whole team wins. We go out there and we set weekly, monthly, and yearly goals. And when they hit it, and my team hits all their bonuses and everyone's getting paid, that's when I feel like we were super successful. I don't see it as one person doing really well. I see it when the whole team does. And that's actually why I restructured the business this year to be all team goals. It was something that, again, I reached out to my dad about, asked him, how do you keep guys motivated? How do you keep everyone on the same page? How do you keep everyone working together? Because in a business, especially where you have a sales team, you have a fulfillment team, you have a marketing team, if everyone's not working together, they're actually working against each other. So our sales team would put in big orders. Sometimes the fulfillment team would be like, oh, now we got to work late on a Friday. They'd be pissed about it. But once we restructured the business and we put everyone together as a total goal, now when a big order comes in, the fulfillment team cheers and calls up the sales team and says, man, great job. Keep the big orders coming in. So just culture completely changed at that point, and it's been absolutely amazing to see. So for me, success all day is when the entire team wins, and that's how I define it at this point.
So you mentioned your dad a few times in our conversation, and at EisnerAmper, we do mentor early stage companies, and I'm just curious if, was your dad one of your mentors along the way? Did you have any other mentors? It's so important to have a mentor when you're starting a business. So tell us a little bit about some of the mentors you've had along the way.
Yeah, for sure. My dad tried to be a mentor, and I definitely didn't listen early on. He pretty much took all his advice and didn't listen to any of it. And then, a couple of years later, I went back and I now try to get as much as I can out of him. 32 years in business, over 100 employees. You're like, wow, it's so impressive to see once you're a business owner yourself and you start going through it all, it just becomes more and more impressive every single year. So I would say my dad definitely helped out a lot. Having Mark Cuban and his team on board as well was really helpful as well, especially early on with different contracts and just trying to figure out things with some of the bigger vendors that I just hadn't done before. So that was a lot of help. And I listened to a lot of podcasts as well. I think that's been a major game changer for me as well.
Okay. What's your favorite one these days?
So I was listening to Andy Frisella. He had one called the MFCEO Project, and it was a lot about business and personal development, and really a lot of 4 a.m. mornings listening to his podcast. So he put out over 350 episodes. I think I've listened to pretty much every one of them.
Wow. I'll have to add that to my list. 4 a.m. Is that what time you wake up?
It was. I've had a lot of 4 a.m. mornings. I think today I was up at 5 a.m. So I slept in a little bit, but things have slowed. 3 kids have slowed me down a little bit. I try to get a little bit more sleep now.
Yep, it's important. So what is the single most important piece of advice you would give to an early stage entrepreneur with an idea that will give them an edge?
I would say that whatever you're going to do, be passionate about it. As an entrepreneur, there's going to be so many ups and downs. If you don't love what you're doing, you're going to give up on it. It's not going to be successful. My first shipment that I got in, that first $50,000 purchase, it was for around 10,000 bottles, and half of them were defective. I had to actually change out the lids on each and every one of them. And At that point, I didn't need the money. My wife's business was doing really well, had a lot of money in the bank already. And, if I wasn't super passionate about it, I would have just gave up right then and there, and would never have had the company. So I tell people all the time, be passionate about it. If you are passionate about it, a lot of other people are going to be passionate about it as well. So you're going to find a way to make it successful. My best example is I love, there's probably so many good examples of this on Shark Tank where someone comes in, it's the most ridiculous idea ever. And then they ask what their sales are and they've sold millions. One of them that just always hits me, and I always think about it, is the guy came in, he wanted to have a drink with his cats. He was super passionate about his cats, loved his cats. He likes, having a good glass of wine, but your cats can't drink, right? So he made a drink for cats. It goes on there and you're like, that is the most ridiculous idea ever, right? But he was super, super passionate about it. And then he said, he sold millions of dollars worth of wine, or I guess not really actual alcohol, but a product that he can have a drink with his cats with. So it just shows you that if you're super passionate about it, other people are too, and there is a way to find something that will allow you to make a living doing that.
Right. That's what they say, right? If you love what you do, it's not work. So,
Yeah, it will still become work at some point. At least as an entrepreneur, I mean, it's definitely going to be a challenge for sure, and you're going to be doing a lot of things that you never thought you would do. I've learned so many different skills that I never thought I would have, and YouTube is an amazing thing, that's for sure.
that's great. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been wonderful speaking to you and learning about Ice Shaker, and we're looking forward to seeing the lunch bag that's getting released. And it was super exciting conversation. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me today.